Viewer discretion is strongly advised. The following is for educational and entertainment purposes only. This is the verbatim federal courtroom testimony of the Sean Diddy Combs trial, as reported by Inner City Press. The courtroom was a pressure cooker, the air thick with the weight of months of whispers, leaked documents, and explosive headlines. Sean Jay-Z Carter, a titan of music and culture, stepped into the federal courthouse, not as a mogul, not as a legend, but as a man staring down a storm. Allegations tied to Diddy's crumbling empire had dragged Jay-Z's name into the chaos. Freak-off parties, secret rooms, and victims he swore he never met. The world was watching, waiting for his words. What would he say when the truth was his only shield? The courtroom buzzed after a morning of legal sparring. Prosecutors were poised to hammer Cassie Ventura's testimony into the jury's minds. Diddy's defense team, a mix of arrogance and exhaustion, shuffled papers like they'd already won. Then the doors swung open, not with a creak, but with purpose, like a challenge issued to the room. Jay-Z walked in, his midnight navy suit sharp as a blade, tailored like armor for a battle he didn't choose. No entourage, no Beyoncé, no Rock Nation crew, just him, a man whose name moved mountains, now facing a room that cared nothing for his fame. Gasps rippled through the gallery. A journalist's pen clattered to the floor, rolling under a chair. Cassie Ventura, seated behind the prosecution, leaned in to whisper to her attorney, her eyes narrowing like she was searching for cracks in his armor. The judge's brow twitched, betraying her calm facade. Even Diddy, slouched at the defense table, froze, his gaze locking onto Jay-Z like a ghost from a buried past had risen to haunt him. This wasn't scripted. Jay-Z had fought for a sealed session to keep his testimony private, but the court demanded transparency. Now, under oath, he was about to deliver a performance that would echo far beyond these walls, not with rhymes, but with raw, unfiltered truth. He took the stand, swore the oath, and the room leaned in. Reporters, prosecutors, and attorneys who'd once sealed million-dollar deals over brunch held their breath, pens poised, phones silenced. His voice came low, steady, but taut, like a wire stretched to its breaking point. "I'm here because silence isn't an option anymore," he said. With those words, the courtroom shifted, the air growing heavier. This wasn't just testimony, it was a reckoning, a moment where a legend would either rise or fall. Jay-Z didn't dodge or weave. He wielded context like a sword, cutting through the noise. "Yes, I was invited to Diddy's events. Yes, I went to some," he began, each word measured, deliberate, like he was laying bricks for a fortress. "But what I saw and what I was told? Two different worlds." His lawyers sat rigid, their faces unreadable. Diddy's team exchanged glances, confusion flickering. Was he helping them or cutting them loose? Jay-Z pressed on, his voice rising, just enough to carry the weight of what came next. "I saw the setups. NDAs handed out like party favors, phones confiscated at the door, back rooms with heavy velvet curtains. I never went in those rooms. I never signed those papers. But I knew something wasn't right." That pause, "I knew," was a grenade lobbed into the room. It wasn't just admitting he was there. It was confessing he'd glimpsed the machine Diddy allegedly built, the one Cassie Ventura and others described in chilling, gut-wrenching detail. He faced the jury, his eyes steady, unyielding. "In this industry, there are parties. And then, there are parties. The ones I walked away from? Those weren't parties. They were systems. Designed, controlled, built for power, not celebration." The prosecution struck fast. "Did you witness anything criminal?" they asked, their tone sharp, probing for a crack. Jay-Z paused, the silence heavy, every eye on him. "Not directly," he said, his voice firm but careful. "But I saw enough to know I didn't belong there." He recounted a night in 2015, a Miami party billed as Christian Combs's birthday celebration. "They had masks," he said, his voice dropping low, almost haunted. "Real masks. One guy walked by in leather and high heels, no shirt, no smile. People laughed like it was a show. I didn't. He looked scared." Jay-Z said he left early, calling his own driver, refusing the scheduled car service. I didn't want my name tied to whatever that was. Then came the photo, a blurry, authenticated image leaked from that night. Jay-Z, Diddy, LeBron James, and Beyoncé in a room, a man in a latex mask kneeling on a velvet pillow. The courtroom held its breath, the silence deafening. Jay-Z stared at the image projected on the screen, unflinching. I was there for that moment, he admitted, his voice steady. They called it performance art. I didn't laugh. I didn't stay. He turned to Diddy, his gaze piercing. You knew people. Trusted you. You used that. The room reeled, murmurs breaking the silence. Then Jay-Z dropped a bombshell. A private conversation with Diddy in late 2018, as whispers of investigations began to swirl. He called me, sounding spooked, Jay-Z said. He told me, "They're coming for me. Be careful who you stand next to." I asked him straight, "Did you do anything I can't come back from?" Jay-Z's voice wavered just for a moment, betraying the weight of the memory. He said, "It's just parties, Jay. Just experiences. Nobody gets hurt unless they want to." That was the last time we spoke. Jay-Z described pulling back, skipping Revolt events, canceling collaborations, ordering Roc Nation to steer clear of Diddy's orbit. The prosecution unveiled an email from early 2020 to Jay-Z's legal team, warning that NDAs from past events could be weaponized against anyone present, guilty or not. Jay-Z nodded, his face grim. I knew what it meant. They'd use silence as a shield. I wasn't going to get caught behind it. His final words on this part landed like a hammer, resonating through the room. He used to be my brother, he said, glancing at Diddy, his voice heavy with betrayal. Now I see who he really was, and who I almost became by standing too close. The courtroom went silent, the weight of his words sinking into every corner. Jay-Z leaned forward, hands clasped tightly, his voice softening but no less commanding. I need to talk about my family, he said, locking eyes with the jury, his gaze unwavering. When my name gets dragged, so does theirs. Reporters stopped typing, their pens frozen mid-stroke. Diddy looked up from his legal pad, his face unreadable. Blue Ivy's old enough to read headlines now, Jay-Z said, his voice catching, raw with emotion. She came to me and asked what a freak-off was. No father should have to answer that question. He described the chaos after the lawsuit, named him. Paparazzi swarming their home like vultures, staking out Blue's school, headlines blurring fact and fiction into a tabloid war zone. My wife has stood by me through everything, he said, his voice steady but laced with pain. But this? This was a nuclear bomb dropped on our family built on lies. He addressed the specific claim that he and Beyoncé attended the 2015 Miami Freak-Off. Pulling out a folder, he said, "We were in Paris that night. Our anniversary. Hotel Plaza Athénée. Here's the receipt. Photographs, video timestamps, multiple eyewitness accounts. The evidence was ironclad, a fortress of proof. The prosecution reviewed it. The judge nodded, her expression neutral. Jay-Z had receipts, literal and figurative. He didn't stop there. He turned his fire on the clickbait culture fueling the rumors. When did we stop demanding proof? He asked, his voice rising, sharp with frustration. When did an accusation become a conviction? He spoke of Beyoncé not as a global superstar but as a mother blindsided by lies. I came here to defend the truth, he said, his words ringing clear, and to make sure no one, not even a billionaire, gets away with burying people in lies. The prosecution wasn't done. They raised the alleged Miami party at Gloria and Emilio Estefan's mansion, where witnesses claimed to have seen Jay-Z. Let me be very clear, he said, his voice like steel cutting through the room. I have never set foot in Gloria Estefan's house. Not in Miami, not anywhere. He produced a stack of documents, security logs, transportation manifests, charity event programs. On the night in question, he was in Los Angeles, speaking at a Sean Carter Foundation dinner at the Peterson Automotive Museum. Here's my speech transcript, he said, holding up a page. Here's the guest list. Here's a photograph with the mayor. The court clerk displayed a security log on a screen, time-stamped to the minute, capturing Jay-Z's entrance and exit. The evidence was bulletproof, undeniable. But Jay-Z went deeper, exposing how the rumors took root. They used vague phrasing. "In lawsuits, innuendo," he said, his tone sharp with disdain. "You don't need a loud lie, just one that gets repeated." He explained how his past attendance at Diddy's public events, like brunches or fundraisers, had been twisted into complicity. "I went to a brunch, so now I'm guilty of everything he's accused of?" he asked the jury, his voice thick with incredulity. "They printed that I was seen in a place I've never been, and that one sentence became thousands of tweets, articles, and irreparable damage." His team submitted a report showing how news outlets parroted the same false claim, none bothering to verify. "If you're going to drag a man into a trial this big," Jay-Z said, staring down the prosecution, "you better have more than gossip and guesses." The testimony took a surreal turn as Jay-Z tackled the conspiracy theories swirling around him. He shook his head, a wry smile breaking through, though his eyes stayed hard. "I've been called a lot in this industry: Illuminati puppet, master manipulator, murderer by association. That's a new one." The jury chuckled nervously, shifting in their seats. He described the internet frenzy, TikTok deep dives, linking him to Harvey Weinstein, R. Kelly, Jeffrey Epstein. "They say, where there's smoke, there's fire," he said, his voice dry. "But sometimes the smoke is just fog machines and YouTube edits." He held up a printed Reddit thread, thousands of upvotes speculating about his supposed inner circle with Beyoncé and Diddy. "This is what passes for journalism now?" he asked, his tone sharp with disbelief. The rumors had real consequences. Family members followed, business deals canceled, death threats piling up. "I didn't speak up sooner because I thought the truth would be obvious," he admitted, his voice softening. "But I underestimated how fast lies travel when they come with slick production and ominous music." His final plea was raw, urgent, directed at the jury. "I'm not asking you to like me," he said, his eyes scanning their faces. "I'm asking you to think, to demand proof, because if we don't draw the line here, none of us are safe from what comes next." He sat back, the room silent, his words a challenge that hung in the air. The lead prosecutor, a federal litigator known for rattling even the most polished celebrities, stood, adjusting his glasses. "Mr. Carter," he began, his voice smooth but pointed, "you've provided logs, photos, timestamps. Compelling." Jay-Z nodded, his expression steady. "Because it's the truth." The prosecutor paced slightly. "You've admitted to attending Diddy's events, brunches, fundraisers, award parties. Ever see anything inappropriate?" Jay-Z's jaw tightened, his eyes narrowing. "No," he said firmly. "Celebrities networking, music playing, the usual." "And Cassie Ventura?" the prosecutor pressed, his tone sharpening. "You never saw her in distress?" Jay-Z's voice was resolute. "She was Diddy's partner." "I never saw her in distress or anything like what she's described." The prosecutor shifted gears. "So you're completely blindsided by her claims of coercion, abuse, freak-offs?" Jay-Z leaned forward, his voice unwavering. "I didn't see it. If I had, I wouldn't have stayed quiet." The prosecutor tried a low blow. "That's what Russell Simmons said, too." The room gasped, a collective intake of breath. Jay-Z blinked, his poker face cracking for a half-second. "Objection!" his attorney barked, rising from his seat. The judge sustained it, her voice sharp, but the implication lingered like smoke. The prosecutor pushed, floating the idea that Jay-Z's proximity to Diddy gave him access to more than just industry clout. But without direct evidence, it was all strategy, a performance for the jury. Jay-Z's final response cut through the tension like a knife. "I'm not here to protect Diddy," he said, his voice steady, resolute. "I'm here to protect my name. If I was part of that world, I wouldn't be testifying. I'd be on trial." Jay-Z stepped down from the stand, adjusted his suit jacket, and exited through a side door, security flanking him. The courtroom erupted. Murmurs, gasps, headshakes. Reporters fired off frantic texts. Social media exploded like a dam breaking. Headlines flashed across screens. "Jay-Z breaks. Silence under oath. Jay-Z defends Beyoncé from Diddy ties. The jury remained unreadable, their faces a mix of skepticism and sympathy. Juror 4, a middle-aged black woman in a beige pantsuit, scribbled steadily in her notepad. Juror 9, a young man with a military haircut, stared at the empty witness chair, his expression distant. A former bad boy intern, caught by the court. Sketch artist wiped tears from her eyes, whispering to a reporter during recess. He says he didn't know, but we saw him at those events. Maybe he just looked away. Cassie Ventura sat stone-faced at her attorney's table, her glance at Jay-Z's mention of Blue Ivy fleeting, more questioning than empathetic. Diddy, stoic through much of the trial, showed signs of unraveling, his pen tapping faster, his eyes scanning the room nervously. The judge called a short recess, and the hallway became a battlefield of clashing voices. "He showed receipts," one spectator shouted, fists clenched. "He's just saving face. He's part of the system," another snapped back. At Rock Nation headquarters, the mood was tense, a war room bracing for impact. Jay-Z's attorney, Alex Spiro, offered a brief statement outside the courthouse. "Mr. Carter testified truthfully and courageously. We stand by his integrity." But the world wasn't waiting for legal summaries. Within 12 hours, every major outlet from TMZ to the New York Times had dissected his testimony, some praising his transparency, others calling it calculated damage control. Beyoncé's name trended globally for 36 hours straight. Her publicist declined to comment. Fans were divided, some fiercely defending her, others questioning how deep the couple's connection to Diddy ran. The prosecution was regrouping, quietly, acknowledging that Jay-Z hadn't shattered their case but had complicated it. He'd humanized himself, distanced his family, and redirected the spotlight. But in doing so, he'd exposed a deeper truth, the industry's pattern of plausible deniability, where proximity could be weaponized as guilt. The DA's office released a statement. "While Mr. Carter's testimony was significant, our investigation remains ongoing and extends beyond any one individual." Translation: the storm was far from over. Then came the wild card. 50 Cent, never one to stay quiet. He posted a photo of Jay-Z on the stand, captioned, "Nice performance, but we ain't forgot them brunches, my guy." It went viral instantly, racking up millions of views. Alicia Keys reposted a quote about truth cutting through silence. Questlove tweeted cryptic emojis, a storm cloud and a question mark. Even Oprah shared a vague Instagram story about building from ashes. The industry was stirring, voices rising, and Jay-Z's testimony had lit the match. Jay-Z's testimony wasn't just about Diddy. It was about an industry built on power, proximity, and the art of looking the other way. His words had drawn a line, forcing everyone, jury, media, fans, to confront uncomfortable questions. What did it mean to be close to power? When does silence become complicity? The courtroom wasn't just trying Diddy, it was putting an entire era of unchecked influence on trial. Jay-Z had survived the stand, his reputation bruised but intact. But the real trial, the trial of legacy, truth, and accountability, was just beginning. In a world where whispers became headlines and accusations could outrun evidence, one thing was clear: this wasn't just Diddy's reckoning. It was a reckoning for an entire era, and Jay-Z had just rewritten its opening chapter.